now.
Super.
Obviously, if there is anything in this meeting which you believe that we shouldn't be sharing with the world, then I'm more than happy not to share the recording. But the recording is usually available on our InterManager YouTube channel afterwards, and I'm sending links for your teams who are not available on this call to be with us or seeing what has been discussed. Welcome. We've got full house today. I'm delighted to say that. And Mark, over to you. That's your...
No, just very quickly, welcome to everybody. We saw a lot of you at the AGM. Thanks to Kuba for arranging that. It's never easy. These things always seem easy to arrange on the surface, but a lot of work went into that. So both for AGM and for XCOM. So well done, Kuba. And I think we all have our marching orders as to what we need to do and how we do it, and that's certainly started. I think a lot of us have got our endorsement proposals over to Kuba as we required for Wednesday, which is yesterday. So we now know where we're going. Kuba, if you could collate those, and then so that everybody knows, there might be some duplicates, so we just need to take off. We can't all be approaching the same people, but I guess you'll do that, and we'll get going. Great.
Indeed. Thank you. And you mentioned that you were on a conference yesterday.
Yes, that was in Cyprus, the CSN Cyprus Shipping News, and we had the minister, etc. And no, that was very good, and talked to a few owners and operators about the general principles, and that we want also in-house management teams to be members of InterManager, and went down very well actually. So I think they'd all heard of the general principles, so the publicity is filtering through, and we need to now get our skates on.
Thank you, Mark. So the update from me, obviously our AGM and XCOM last week, minutes have been circulated to you. I'm now getting some feedback because I've forgotten about this and that. There were some discrepancies in the minutes, so I encourage you to read that and come back once the memory is still fresh. Thank you for that. We had a very good coverage, thanks to our PR team, Sean and Debbie, thank you. Very good coverage in Lloyd's List and some other publications. We will obviously collect them and we would know where we are. Next week is the reception in IMO new Secretary General, but also very important for us, InterManager was very instrumental with enclosed spaces. Now, the ripples we created a few years ago are now really making an effect, and OCIMF invited us as the sort of a major speaker there. So there will be a lot of people in one room on the 1st of February, and I'm not going to miss this opportunity, having everybody to actually start talking about and start reminding them that principles and everything we've got. So that's as far as I'm concerned now happening. I have circulated a response about the Red Sea. You should have received that. How many percentage-wise of people are redirected ships who are not going there, and so on and so forth. And I also circulated question from one of our members regarding how much does it actually cost you to comply with what's the word I'm looking for? The Russian sanctions. Here we go. And I'm not getting much responses, to be perfectly honest. There were only a few companies which responded. And it's a big number. We are all suffering with this as well. So it's not then it's cost neutral for ship managers to comply with this. I'll stop at this stage. Anybody have any comments, or anyone would like to chip in at this stage? Okay, no, thank you. Then we've got Blake Sinclair with us today, and Blake has been working with us actually with our EU ETS committee, and we were trying to gather questions. Those questions have been circulated to all of you, and some of you were inspired to come with more questions, and some of you started on the processes. So I'll hand over to Blake. And Blake, are you sharing your screen as well? Do you have...
Yes, Kuba, I have a few questions that we've received from a number of people that I thought it'd just be good to put up and start from a baseline, if that's okay.
Yes, please. And I'll tell you when I can see it now.
Okay, just bear with me 1 second.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we've got it.
Yeah.
and it's not in a presentation mode at the moment. I can see
Yeah.
presenters mode. So, oh, here we go. That's good one now. Thank you.
Good. Perfect. Thank you, Kuba. As Kuba mentioned, my name is Blake Sinclair. We have been working with a number of large ship managers, including InterManager, for the last 6 months, to understand how ETS impacts them and how different actors in that chain, be it ship owners, ship managers, financial institutions, will all work together to tackle a common problem. Who are we? We are Radnor Partners. You may know me from my other guise, which is working for MTI ITI. We are a bespoke ESG consultancy for maritime clients, and obviously ETS fell into our lap. We pulled together a joint venture called Radnor Partners with a number of core competencies from understanding of capital markets, compliance issues, insurance issues, and carbon trading houses. And Radnor Partners is essentially a collaborative effort that brings together all these expertise to develop products specifically designed for the maritime industry. So here we go. Everybody will be more than aware of the key highlights of ETS, the EU ETS, when it's been brought in, how the phase-in approach works, and the rest of it. What we see time and time again is a misunderstanding of the penalties for non-compliance. So the first thing to make really, really clear is the penalty fine is on top of the spot purchase price for the EUA. So whatever the spot is, plus 100 euros corrected for inflation. So right now the fine will be about 134 euros per ton, and that's on top of spot. So if you say the average spot price was 80 euros last year, then the total fine per ton will be around 220 euros currently for every ton not surrendered, or for every EUA not surrendered. The next important thing to understand is the way that the expulsion order should be applied. It is for the entire DOC fleet, not for the MOHA fleet, not for the registered entity fleet, but for the entire DOC fleet. So I think it's often worthwhile just clarifying those 2 points up front. I know a lot of you are very sophisticated in your engagement with ETS, but it's something that time and time again there is not clarity on. So those are the two things I'd really just like to articulate up front. So as Kuba says, we've been working with a number of large, small, independent ship managers to understand what is required for the ETS compliance. And again, these are the kind of the most frequently asked questions that we get from these clients. Now, I'll work through them. You may share the same questions or you may have different questions at the end, but I'll just go through these ones that we can take it from there. So who is responsible? The very important first question. There's only 2 entities that can be responsible for ETS compliance. That is either the registered owner or the ISM company by mandate to become the responsible entity. The registered owner is defined by the IMO's unique company and registered owner identification number scheme, which is the owner of the vessel that is subjected to the EU ETS regulations. So what does that mean for special purpose vehicles at an ownership level? That means that each special purpose vehicle will be a registered owner and have to set up their own administrative structure. They are each the shipping company. So every shipping company must have its own singular MOHA and it cannot be aggregated. So it's a very important thing to be aware of. The other part of this is the MOHA will not automatically populate from the Thetis software. So there is a double level of administration here. You have to manually add the data to each MOHA. When will this get interesting for ship managers? On the 1st of February, you guys will be aware that the EU is releasing its administrative authorities. From this date, there's 40 days to open a MOHA. So that's the point where people really have to understand how they are going to target this and how they're going to engage with it. By the 1st of April, companies must submit their monitoring plans. So we have essentially Q1 to really flesh this out between what the owner is doing, what the manager is doing, and how those two are interacting. Again, the punishments for the companies, we've already been through this earlier, but just to clarify that there. So what role can third parties play? The important question for InterManager and InterManager members. What we've seen time and time again is that due to the burden that the special purpose vehicle structure puts on large beneficial owners, they are asking ship managers to be the responsible entity. As much as these large blue chip players want to manage ETS responsibilities and ETS compliance by themselves, the administrative burden of it is far too much. So there are three main and distinct scenarios in which a third party can assist large clients, small clients, and everything in between. First of all, the ISM company can provide the MRV data to the registered owner, and that can be the only role that they play. In this scenario, the ISM company does not take on any liability whatsoever. The registered entity, or the responsible entity, the registered owner in this case, is responsible for both MRV and ETS obligations in a change from the previous MRV legislation. So in case one, the ISM company, the ship manager, is not liable for anything. They will provide the data to owners only. The second scenario is the ISM company, or crucially another third party, can manage the registered owner's MOHA, and they can take on administrative burdens from that, i.e. monitoring, purchasing, and surrendering EUAs. The third potential scenario, and we'll go through each one of these in a little bit more detail in a second, is the ISM company can serve as the responsible entity and take full ETS compliance from their owners. Now, each of these have their own problems and their own risks, but let's go through them. The first one's pretty self-explanatory. You don't really need to get me to go into that. You provide the MRV data, as you have been for a number of years already, and that is for the owner to settle all sort of compliance obligations past that. The second scenario, where the ISM company or another third party can manage the registered MOHA, becomes about because each MOHA, and every shipping company has one MOHA only. This is a key thing to remember. Two authorized representatives who can be named individuals over 18 years old. The shipping company must nominate one authorized representative, but the second can be anybody. It can be a person from the parent company, it can be a person from a third party, it can be a person from the ISM manager. This individual can perform day-to-day runnings or necessary for compliance. MRV fetus data, EUA acquisition, surrendering of EUAs. They can essentially do all day-to-day tasks necessary for this. However, the liability for or the compliance liability still rests with the registered owner. The shipping company, the same individual can sit across many MOHAs, so that's fine, but each, as we said, each MOHA has to be populated separately. It does not push from MRV fetus. The shipping company remains responsible for both MRV fetus and EU ETS regulations, regardless of the support it receives. And the responsible entity for ETS is the same as the MRV. This is a big change from the previous legislation. The third scenario that we were talking about just there is what happens when the ISM manager serves as the responsible entity and takes compliance from the owners. It can be possible. They must provide the administrative authority responsible with the document that demonstrates the mandate for the ISM company to become the responsible entity from the owner. The ISM company then becomes responsible for collecting and uploading to MRV fetus and is liable for that obligation. They're also liable for the surrendering of the correct EUAs for its whole MOHA fleet. They will have one MOHA for all vessels that it serves as responsible entity for. There is not different MOHAs for each client that it takes the responsible entity status for. There is one MOHA for one shipping company. The liability for the ETS compliance is therefore transferred to the ISM company in this scenario. Again, this is where it's very important to remember how the penalty of expulsion is levied. It is across the entire DOC fleet. not the MOHA fleet or the responsible entity fleet. So a very, very, very important thing. In practice, this is the kind of average of what we've seen from people coming to us about. BIMCO ship management clause is the baseline. People are enhancing that themselves or going off on a slightly separate position. Usually a lot of people are bringing in new guardrails to really safeguard the relationship between the responsible entity and the owner. This theoretically will be that each month owners will provide emission estimates, as you all know, and reconcile that over previous months, so in the following months. Owners then provide ISMO with corresponding EUAs or cash within an agreed upon time frame. Now, that's also a very important thing to be aware of. There's a lot of counterparties that do not want to deal with EUAs directly. They do not want to purchase at auction. They don't want to have any position on that. They want to transfer cash monies into the account of the ISM manager to purchase on their behalf. ISO company accrues liability and its corresponding assets as they go, either through the form of direct EUAs or monies. And the ETS year finishes on the 31st of December. The ISM company then has an aggregated verified emission statement for all vessels in its MOHA fleet. And come the 30th of September, they must surrender the equivalent amount of EUAs, either through acquisition from charterers or owners, or for buying through receiving monies equivalent. The ISM company is liable for any shortfalls for any reason in this situation. So it is recommended by a number of leading bodies that in this scenario, the third-party manager seeks financial security if serving as responsible entity for the clients. This is essentially to protect them for any shortfall for any reason, be that dispute, insolvency, delayed payment, etc., 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 so that the company can continue operating without fines or without any sort of impediment of their operations. So if we just look at quick risks and actions here, in scenario 1 and 2, when the ISM manager is not serving as the responsible entity and therefore has no liability for MRV or ETS, the biggest risk that they will face is there is a number of clients, a number of large owners that because of their structure to do with special purpose vehicles, they will move, and they've already told us that they will move vessels from a manager to another manager because some managers are offering this service. So there's a big risk, maybe one that people are happy to live with, fine. So those that need or cannot settle EUA liabilities by themselves may go to a third-party manager who will provide this EUA settlement. The only action in this scenario is to provide MRV voyage data, and there may managers may want to advise on ETS compliance, setting up, purchasing, etc., etc. In this scenario, it's also important to know that under current errors and omissions cover from P&I clubs, any sort of incorrect reporting of MRV to the owner will be covered by this position. However, it's something to double check with your P&I club. We know that some are doing this, but double check this. In scenario 3, there are definitely more risks associated with it. Number 1, the biggest risk of all is non or late payment of EUAs from a commercial partner for any reason will mean that the shipping company is liable, the ship manager is liable. A second risk, and it's something that we've experienced from one of our clients, is if some people want to pay in money, there is a price risk. That the EUA price, as it is a floating commodity, may be different from the capital received and the point of purchase price. It may go up, it may go down, but that is, again, the point of purchase that the manager will be responsible for. Risks of fines and expulsion, that's just the penalties if liability is not settled. And one other big thing that we have seen time and time again is how companies that are serving as responsible entity for a select number of clients will communicate that to the rest of their client base. Because as we said at the beginning, it is not just the direct owner that may suffer if there is non-payment. it is the entire DOC fleet that will suffer if there is no payment, or will potentially suffer if there is no payment, if there's an underpayment of the EUAs. So a lot of large owners that are managing their own EUA interaction in-house are saying to managers, well, how can you prove to us that you are liquid enough or financially stable enough to cover any shortfalls so our operations are not impacted? So there's a risk there. Actions that come out of this: managers must be able to facilitate EUAs. They must have the ability to surrender. This will be through your MOHA. Roles and responsibilities are agreed upon, trading strategy, forecasts, etc. So there's two very different ways of handling this. Both have their own risks associated with it. I feel that there is a coalescing in the marketplace, that everybody is starting to understand that there is a necessity for ship managers to play a role in this. People are handling this differently. Some are looking at a commercial stream through EUA services. Some are looking to just continue to provide a very good service to some core clients, key clients. Others don't want to touch it. So there's a range of options in that. I think, Kuba, you sent around a short survey to basically get an understanding. I think it was around about 50-50 split between those that aren't going to do anything and 50% are going to engage with that. 30% of that we're going to serve as responsible entity from the overall. So it's 50% not touching it, 20% doing MOHA management, etc., administrative duties, and 30% of actors were looking to take responsible entity status from owners. So that's a very, very short overview of frequently asked questions that we have. I'm happy to open the floor now to any questions that anybody might have that want more detail on anything, or etc., etc. Sorry, okay, Sebastian, you have two questions.
Yep. No, it's AJ was first, Sebastian second. So if you don't mind, Sebastian, could you hold on just AJ, please, and then Sebastian.
Thanks, Blake. Excellent presentation. I have two. I know there will be many questions. I have two questions, very simple and short. Number one, today we received a letter from DNV, who are our verifier, and they showed us a screenshot of MRV monitoring plan. They say you need to fill up the information, which is based on Article 1, Para 3 of the EU regulation. So exactly same. Our Para 3 is based on Para 1, which is basically making the company responsible for the all the liabilities. So my question is, should we sign and send it to them? They say because until we fill up this information, the process will not move further. This is my first question.
Sorry, so just to clarify, should you sign the agreement with DNV about them being your...
No.
Sorry?
It's a mandate between ship owner and DOC holder.
Yep.
Even though we are not going for scenario 3.
Okay, sorry. Okay, following. So the way that your shipman contracts will evolve, there's no need to sign any new contracts per se that specify that you will not serve as the responsible entity. Serving as the responsible, serving not for the manager not to serve as the responsible entity is the default position. So the default position of the ETS directive is that the registered owner is the shipping company.
Okay, thanks. And
so
two short questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Second question, sorry.
And number two is that we are not going for a scenario 3, but we will have a scenario 2 for most of our external owners, and we will be submitting all the data for them. So shall we be operating or opening an MOHA?
If you are not, you will have, as a shipping company, you will open a MOHA, but sorry, let me just rephrase that. If you are serving as second seat on if you are being an administrative help on other people's MOHAs, you will serve on their MOHA. So one shipping company, one MOHA. you do not have you do not as a entity open a MOHA to manage other people's interactions. So you will have to have a named authorized representative that is placed on the MOHAs of your owners.
Okay, so with 6 owners, I'll be handling 6 MOHAs.
Yes, one person will sit on, or 6 people, however you want to play it, will sit on the shipping company's MOHAs. It is one shipping company, so the shipping company is the responsible entity. One shipping company, one MOHA.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sebastian?
Yeah, I wanted to add a few comments in the beginning, more to the general situation, but then also in promotion of your mature and good insurance product, Blake. Yeah, in the general sense, I wanted to add, there is now a third scenario, the bareboat charterer. So the possible responsible parties are the ship owner by default, and then also they started to understand the role of the bareboat charterer and added in a clarification that the bareboat charterer can also register if it's also the ISM manager and the ISM manager. Now, we are all sort of running to the commission and point out that the disqualification of bareboat charterer makes zero sense. Helping them explain, helping them through explanation that a bareboat charterer, that's part of a normal leasing contract. Like if they lease their private cars, etc., it's perfectly normal. And from EXA to VDR to everybody who's involved in the process is currently trying to make them clarify before mid-February that, of course, a bareboat charterer can directly register. Having said that, currently it's the bareboat charterers, the ship owners with a bareboat charter structure in the back that come and say, oh, what happens if we can't register ourselves? Incidentally, those are often the big names, the MERS, the CMA, the big ones. The ones that employ these financing instruments are often the ones that have already built up ETS trading teams on the ship owner side. And they're really a bit irritated and say, what do we do if the registers don't allow our registration, even though we want to be the responsible? Here, our answer as BSM and the answer of every responsible ship owner I've talked to so far is a clear, not our problem. And I'm going to qualify that statement. But the reality that a ship owner has a problem with EU register doesn't automatically make it the problem of the ship owner, not at all. But depending on who the financing party in the background is, if it's an investment fund, it's perfectly legitimate to make them register the SPV with the EU registers, and us ship managers being the agents acting on behalf, of course, facilitating that, doing that, helping them fill out the forms, blah, blah, blah. That's all I wanted to say, that yes, there are owners who currently reach out to ship managers, say, oh, you have to sign the liability takeover. I advise strongly, don't just do it. Of course, if it ends up being good customers, a few ships here, and then, of course, depending on whether you bring a great insurance product that can secure the position. But if it's the big fleet, and currently it's the one with the 50 ships, yeah, none of the ship managers I spoke to far lets him or herself just bully into that position. Clearly, if a major ship owner with 50 ships pushes the liability for ETS onto a ship manager, that's a deadly risk. So this doesn't have to be decided now. We currently advise everybody, wait, the position of the registers are maturing. You're not in a rush. We're all going to learn what's possible in practice, etc., but we have to do it together. Having said that, few comments on the practical aspects of the registers. It goes haywire currently. So the Germans already said it's going to be April before they accept any applications for MOHAs. The Dutch recently said we accept applications only from companies that are registered in the commercial register in the Netherlands, which obviously makes zero sense for shipping. And the Danish have said something. So I would say as ship managers, we have an obligation, maybe not legally, not contractually, but definitely we should have our ears currently very close to these registers to be able to advise our owners what's going on and help facilitate their registration when it comes to that in February. Lastly, I wanted to promote your insurance, maybe the purpose why you're here. Blake has an insurance product in the making that secures the credit default risk coming from a ship manager taking over ship owners' ETS liability. I think there's still a lot of maturing to be done, but obviously if such a product at an affordable price point is available, Blake, then we ship managers will, quite frankly, it will be much easier to soften up on the liability takeover if this can be secured. Maybe you can have a few words on that product that you
Yes, sure. So thank you, Sebastian, and thank you for the extra comments on the bareboat charter structure. Very welcomed. As Sebastian says, we have recently developed a insurance product, which is in the final stages of being taken up by a very large manager, which essentially is a credit risk insurance policy that means that for any reason that you do not get the correct EUAs from your counterparties, be that through dispute, delay, insolvency, etc., the insurance product kicks in to provide the shortfall to purchase the EUAs needed. It's a very simple front end. It's a bespoke product. It's the only one in the world that exists. It's taken heaven and earth, moving heaven and earth to try and get people to understand it in the insurance markets, but it does exist. It is viable. We have underwriters that want to be exposed to it because it's seen as a transition product, a net zero transition product. So it's a very good product for underwriters to be exposed to. And we have some very large underwriters that are wanting to be exposed to it.
Excellent, Blake, thank you. AJ, your hand is the heritage hand, isn't it? You don't want to ask. I think I've got Mark and then Rajiv.
Can you put it down? Yeah, thanks.
Mark?
Thanks, Kuba. Blake, I thought that was a very good presentation. And can you circulate that, or can you send it to Kuba and he'll circulate it? Wonderful. Brilliant.
And please remember, this is being videoed as well. So the link will be provided as soon as I upload it, and you can share that with anybody. So the discussion here is being captured. I've got a message for Alex. Alex, your video is on, so watch out, yeah, because we are working with you. Thank you. Rajiv?
Thanks, Kuba.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Rajiv from MTM Ship Management. And I must say that Blake's presentation was excellent, very crisp and to the point. I have a few questions. When Ajay said that if the ISM manager is not going to take the responsible entity on behalf of the owner, I think you said he still needs to have an MOHA. Why does an ISM manager need to have a MOHA if he will not be the responsible entity for any of the owners under his DOC?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's to be frank, I think that the practical element of the directive has not been drafted or thought about. Well, it's been very thought about, but it's not been in terms of a practical sense. It is a bit clunky for a lot of reasons, even for the fact that the MRV thesis does not automatically populate MOHA accounts. It is a drag. To answer your question, I think yes. Every shipping company needs to must have one MOHA. If that MOHA is not used, then that is a different story.
Okay, thank you. I have two more questions, if you allow. That say a ISM manager has about 80 ships, out of which 50 are in-house owners and 30 are non-MTM. Say, for example, MTM has 80 ships. 50 are owned by MTM and 30 are non-MTM. Now, the MTM owners want MTM ship management to be the responsible entity, and many managers would have this problem. Can a ship manager become the responsible entity only for part of the vessels under the DOC?
Yes.
Can.
It is very each counterpart. So each registered owner and has a different engagement with you. It's for you to decide which registered owners you serve as the responsible entity for.
Now, if I am a manager and I have 6 owners, and if I accept the responsibility, do I need to have 6 MOHAs for each owner or only 1 MOHA for all the owners?
One shipping company, 1 MOHA.
All right. And say, for example, an owner like MTM, they may have 50 ships. But unfortunately, in today's world, every ship has a different registered owner. So if the owner has to take the responsibility, does he have to open 50 MOHAs?
Yes, unless they transfer it to a third party, an ISM manager. So for each registered owner, as default, there must be 1 MOHA. So if there's 50 registered owners, it's 50 MOHAs. If there is 1 ISM manager taking on 50 vessels from 50 registered owners, the ISM manager will have 1 MOHA.
And this is the reason why very big owners are pushing the managers to take this responsibility. And one of the owners,
yes,
if I have 50
partly,
ships
yes.
under 50 owners, sorry?
Partly, yes. One of the things that we have seen is that some large multi-owner structures, multi-SPVs or bareboat charters, etc., are asking the ISM owner to take this responsibility is because of the administrative burden that they are experiencing in-house.
I see. And 2 more questions.
Rajiv.
Yes.
Okay, hold on a second, because we've got other people on the call as well. Okay, you've already asked 7 questions. I appreciate that. If we've got a floor, I'll give it back to you. Okay, but
Okay,
now we've got a Sebastian, and I've got a question for Sebastian as well. Hearing what Blake was saying, then we still have clunky regulation. Don't you, Sebastian, think then we've got appetite to unclunky this as an InterManager and engage with European Commission, provide the feedback and help them to make it more user-friendly?
Yeah, first of all, I'd actually like to go back to Rajiv in a second. I thought these questions were really super relevant. I wanted to pick up one question and answer in the Rajiv pair, where, yeah, of course, the owners currently all come and say, man, that's complicated admin. And they come to us, and first of all, I think it's great if we as a ship management industry community can provide some answers, because depending on how many ships we have, we may just know more about the admin side than especially a smaller owner. But on the other hand, it must be clear to a ship owner, they look at the admin burden, but they must be clear that if a ship manager would accept to take over the liability, that comes with significant disadvantages for the owner. So first of all, we would of course ask for a hefty fee for it. Not only possibly insurance premiums, but also our own fees would go high. We would of course insist, and I'm sure the insurance would insist as well, that these certificates are surrendered into our sphere monthly or relatively regularly, whereas we all know the ship owners and the charterers are fighting the fair fight currently, where the charterers is trying to delay the surrendering of these certificates, ideally to only once a year from charterer to ship owner. So ship owner who considers pushing liability to ship manager has to understand there's going to be serious penalties in doing that. We will then become the complicated parties, and the ship owner most likely will end up extended between what the charterer gives him or her and the ship owner and the insurance required. Having said that, almost back to you, Rajiv, few words on what you said, Kuba. Yeah, of course. EU ETS and also Fuel EU, which is in the pipeline of 2025, show that the visions that from environmentalists to regulators to industry over the last decades, and the COPs, etc., this is now reality, and it's a lot of money. And we have to, as ship management industry, stay very close to the regulators currently, ensuring they understand our industry, because see EU ETS in the beginning, suddenly the entire liability. I don't know, most people on the call here will remember when the EU directive dropped in 2023, there was no registered owner that could register as a as responsible entity. It was just the ISM manager. So by default, we would have been liable for all of this, which for the fleet in BSM, for example, amounts to roughly 100 million euros a year in 100% year. So yeah, InterManager onwards, close to the regulators, make sure they understand, make sure that our position as ship management industry is properly represented, and not only in the EU, but also the Chinese, the Americans, everybody is the British, everybody is working on these schemes. So clear yes to you, Kuba, and maybe briefly back to Rajiv. You had good questions. Huh?
That's fine, and obviously I appreciate. So Rajiv, you will get your floor, but we cannot monopolize. So I've got a few people, and then if there is no other, then I'll definitely come back to you, Rajiv. So don't worry.
Okay, thank you.
Mark,
I have only 2 more questions if I have the floor. Thank you.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, very quickly. At last night's Cyprus Shipping News conference, the request was made to me in my InterManager capacity that I strongly urge members of InterManager not to take advantage of any responsibility that might befall managers. There were a number of owners there, there were a number of owners there who said, look, we will simply not have the ability to resource this where we have 30, 40, 50 vessels. We'll have to employ 10 people to manage this where our fleet trades with Europe. And I said, well, obviously there is an appetite within the medium to larger managers to take on this work for a fee. And it was I was requested to pass that message on, that would be. So I do see that this. I hear what Sebastian is saying about, you know, that we will of course charge for this, but I do see some of the bigger owners saying you'll do this, and you won't do this for much more than your present management fee. At least items 1 and 2, or responsibilities 1 and 2. Clearly 3 would earn a premium, but I don't see this as a big, such a large earning potential, because certainly the bigger clients will make it a condition that we do this if we take over management. It will. I foresee really that this becoming a standard offering of managers going forward, subject to the question around that number 3 that Blake, that area 3 that Blake highlighted, and having the proper insurances in place. But it was strange, because it was a point that was specifically made that I should relay, that, you know, owners won't allow managers to profiteer from this this function.
It's very interesting, obviously. Thank you for sharing that. And it's, as ever, you know, it's a capitalism, so I understand it's given and taken here.
Yeah, and
Sebastian?
that was ICS, just so you know, that was ICS and the Cyprus Shipping Council. They both asked me to relay that formally. So that we need to bear that in mind too, when we say, yes, we're happy to do this, but you know, I think it will become part and parcel of our natural offering. So it's probably better that we all gear ourselves up for having that ability, which we have done, of course, and most of us.
Maybe just in clarification to what I said, 100%. So for service level 1 and 2, providing the data, the reporting, handling the registries, all the admin, filling out all the application forms, so the owners just have to sign it, etc. Doing it all on behalf of the owner. This is something that we offer everybody at a very fair price, and we push that offer to our ship owners. So there's absolutely nothing negative about that. Let's get in a position where we can do it. We are acting ship managers on behalf of owners. So what I said earlier was just in reference to the liability takeover, which is really a different category.
Yeah, no, I take that. Yeah.
Okay, I see that Rajiv, you can have another question, and then if we don't have anybody else, then another question. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. suppose an owner has 40 ships and 40 registered owners, but the shareholding is only one company. Can EU allow the shareholding company to become the responsible entity for all 40 ships, or they will maintain the stand of ISM and registered owners only?
The only people that can serve as responsible entity is the owner or the ISM manager or author, essentially. So
yes,
if you have a parent,
the owner has 40 ships with 40 names as registered owner in the certificate of registry, but the shareholding company is one. Can this shareholding company become responsible entity? I know as per the present regulations, no.
No, if it's a parent organization that itself is not defined as a shipping company, and the shipping company is either the registered owner of the vessel subject to the ETS position or the ISM company, the parent company can sit on the MOHA as an authorized representative, but you need to have individual MOHAs for each shipping company.
Okay, last question.
Rajiv, hold on. Rajiv, hold on.
Yeah.
Sebastian.
Yeah, just we asked that question also, and the honest answer is the EU is collecting a lot of money with EU ETS. So, and they have to distribute that money inside the EU. And if you look into the EU directive, the first 15 points are about EU ETS, and then there's 50 or 40 points regarding how the money is then shared inside the EU. And all this is basis on which ports these ships call. And the plan is also that every 2 years inside the EU, they reassess to which register a ship belongs. Fortunately, they say we don't have to manually re-register, but they will somehow do it internally with a charge. But it makes what you say is the only thing that makes sense would be to be able to club ships together and make it easier for everybody on the admin side. But the problem is that affects their understanding of how if you allow me to be a bit flippant, how the spoils are to be shared. And I guess that's why it's currently a big no-no. When they realize how much admin it is on the registers, quite frankly, possibly they reconsider the stance, but I don't think it's going to happen before February.
Excellent, Sebastian. Thank you. Rajiv.
Yes, regarding the insurance, you touched upon this topic, but I went to ITIC and ITIC came back that they are not willing to take this credit risk, and they strongly recommended the ship managers not to take this responsibility. Then I went to some underwriters, and most of the underwriters I went to refused to give insurance on this. Is there any insurance available? And if, how? On the historical data of last year, what would be the EUAs for this year? What will be the amount and premium? Any idea on that?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the question. So yes, as I mentioned, the insurance policy and product that we have developed is the only one in the market because we've gone about it a slightly different way and had to, as I say, move heaven and earth in terms of getting brokers and underwriters to understand the position. So yes, there is a product. There is appetite from underwriters because we've gone through, again, different avenues to access these underwriters. The product is it's defined by the company. So it's a bespoke product, not a one that is a lift and shift. In terms of the way that it is priced, it is done on your counterparties. It is done on your previous exposure or your expected liability exposure for a credit number. An important part of this is what guardrails the company themselves are putting in to manage the liability, i.e. termination contracts, monitoring of EUAs how this debt is stacked in debt piles and the rest of it. But we have developed this with ship managers. So the product is in the position of understanding exactly where, for instance, the ship manager sits in the debt stack with a financial institution that you sign away your rights of payment, mortgages to the ship, to the financial owner, for instance. So this has been designed by ship managers, for ship managers, with our broker and our underwriters. The broker is Howden Group. It's an international, well-regarded company. We've been working with them very, very tightly to develop this product. So yes, it is there. Depending on the structure and depending on the counterparts, the premium sits between 2 and 5%.
2.5%.
2 and 5, 2 to 5. So 2 dash 5.
On the exposure of historical data.
Yes. But that again can be up for discussion, because about the way that this may differ is depending on what excess, for lack of a better phrase, the company may want to build, how that aggregates. Is that by ship or at a kind of overarching level? There's a lot of different questions that need to be answered by each company and how they are going to manage this exposure. And then that gets taken to the underwriters to be priced. But the data that we've had coming back just now is it sits somewhere between 2 and 5%.
Is there any form of financial security that any InterManager can provide or you can provide? There are some owners who are saying that we can provide a very good financial security based on the historical data of the ship that managers are managing of 2023. Is there any guidelines on the financial security which a manager can expect from his owner?
We have had other clients who are asking their own owners, who they're serving as responsible entity for, to advance a deposit for the service. Now, again, none of this has been formalized quite yet, but this is certainly the tack that they are taking.
All right.
This is something else that plays very nicely into the conversation with underwriters, that you are taking very good steps to minimize your own liabilities in this position, and therefore that will bring the premium down. Again, I have to just say I'm not an insurance broker, so any of this is not precise recommendations for your company. If you'd like to take up any further positions, I can put you in touch with our brokers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, let me chip in, because I've got a question which I received on WhatsApp from one of the people who didn't want to ask directly. And it is a question about those individuals serving on MOHA. What insurance would they have, directors and officers? Who would provide for this particular individual who is sitting, has been chosen by the company, DPO, whoever that would be? There might be a completely new position ship management will need to come up with. And what's the insurance for this particular person?
So with the second seat on the MOHA structure, the liability still sits with the registered owner if the ISM manager has not signed the contractual obligation to serve as responsible entity. The individual therefore does not have an acute liable position. However, they may want to enter in some commercial positions. As I say, ITIC, for instance, are covering errors and omissions under usual cover. So you may want to look at your own P&I clubs and how that would relate. But certainly under the standard errors and omissions cover, ITIC is suggesting that ship managers would be covered by that. But again, I don't work for ITIC. It's something to speak to them directly about.
Indeed. Thank you. And I've got a Stuart. I'm looking at Stuart. Sorry to put you on the spotlight here. Did you manage to talk to Rob and from ETIC actually and ask him to be on this call?
Yeah, he wasn't available, but the position that Blake has said ETIC are taking is the latest. I've spoke to him just the other day. Unless something changes drastically, they don't have an appetite for the risk.
Is there a room for InterManager actually to engage in a discussion with ETIC, and especially after what we are seeing here today and the education is coming?
I've got absolutely no doubt. Robert Hodge would be delighted to receive a call from you, Cuba.
Thank you. Okay, being very conscious on the time, 1954, we still have 5 minutes. Superb discussion, obviously. Thank you everyone for engaging. I bet it will be one of the most viewed videos we will be posting shortly. And as you can see, Blake, we've got appetite for your presentation because it was a very good presentation indeed. Now, I'm really sorry that I will be singing some praises for the InterManager, but I think for all of you on this call, this is what the organization association does for you. And Blake couldn't put it more bluntly than it is done by ship managers, for ship managers, by ship managers. So this is where I think our role is as a managers. If you, ladies and gentlemen, engage, then we are able to bring to the table experts and partners who would help us. But we need to know where the pain points are, and then we'll find a painkiller for it. So I think that's all from me. I'm looking at Mark. Mark, would you like to have a final word?
No, I think that's one of the best 60 minutes, certainly in my experience. No, very well done. Thank you, Blake. If you circulate that report, that's great.
Thank you. And anybody on any other issue? Anything which we need to? We've got another 60 minutes in 2 weeks' time. Yes,
Just
Sean?
one thing, Kuba, just one thing. We produced the video of the debate the other day at the InterManager AGM. You'll be getting a link from Brendan. It's all been tarted up and it all looks nice, and so you can put it onto your website or send it out to whoever, and it'll be on the SMI website. But we've put all of that together now, so that's all done.
Very good. Hold on, I just got a message from somebody. Björn is sending something. I think that's it from us today. And as you can see, I think there is a value of actually introducing 60 minutes to your teams. If you can't make it, then delegate, send a message. I'm delighted to see some people who are usually not on a call, but they made it an effort here because I believed it was valued to be here. So anyhow, thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time, if not earlier, in one of the venues. Thank you very much. Blake, well done. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
care.
Well done, Blake.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Blake. Thank you, Kuba.